Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for everyone for joining. Thank you again, all those who did attend this session. I'm afraid the recording didn't quite work as planned, so I was just going to do a quick rerun, hopefully condensed slightly, of what we covered, just for anyone who missed it. So yeah, but no, great. It was a cracking turnout. We had, I think, up to 40 people at one stage, so that was more than we hoped for by fourfold, I think. So yeah, I hope everyone seemed to find it useful. So I'm just going to run over it one more time. So yeah, isolation sessions. Can't think of a better name, so we're sticking with that at the moment. The first one we're doing of many is the 5 essentials, and all the future ones we will be recording, and hopefully it will work, just to let you know. So yeah, just to introduce myself, I am Rory Plummet. I am the, for many of the people on who attended this, from the Corinthians, I'm the race captain of the London Corinthians. I'm a yacht master instructor for sail, VHF instructor, dinghy and powerboat, although the last two I have to say I've done a lot less of in recent years. And yeah, I've been sailing since I was 4 years old. Somehow I've ended up, I'm now the chief instructor and principal, if that's how you spell it, of Equinox, the London School of Sailing. And yeah, I've been teaching yachts for 7 years. I taught dinghy sailing for 6 years in Greece, and yeah, I've generally been sailing since I was pretty small. Quite handy having family in Cornwall for that. And yeah, here's my contact details. I've put these up. These are new because if you've got any questions about this and you want to get in touch, or if you want to, you can also contact. I mean, this session, as you noticed by the logos in the bottom, we're covering. This is also being put on really by Equinox, the London School of Sailing. I set up the London School of Sailing itself. We're separate, but very, very much linked with Equinox, and so it's also for the Corinthians. So it's kind of a trying to just do something for everyone. I figured rather than doing the same thing 3 times, just do it at once. And Rob, who unfortunately isn't here now live to introduce himself, he lives in the Isle of Wight. He's owned a Sigma 38 for 10 years, I believe, and Kindred Spirit. He's been racing them ever since he bought it. I think he didn't mention this, but I believe you were his committee for the Sigma 38 Association. And yeah, dab hand on the boat, basically. Nice and chilled. We get on quite well because neither of us like shouting at people when we're on boats, and we just like to make sure that everyone has a jolly good time. Recently done his cruising instructors and general guru / ninja on a Sigma 38. We're planning to do a program of all sorts, really, but we're starting off with a racing introduction, really. This is what the 5 essentials, and then we're going to go on to things like racing prep, crew position, the rules on the water, start line, sail trimming, manoeuvres. There's many more topics. That's just all I could kind of fit on this slide without overcrowding. And then we're doing a program of skipper's tips and refreshers. So things to know before you go, skipper's packing, planning weekends, etc., safety briefings, and basically what this list does is it just goes through the things, the procedures to think about and to go through, and how to have a nice calm time, hopefully, for a weekend out on the Solent or something like that. So this is all for free, and we're just going to put these on for you to join twice a week at 12:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays for just 20 minutes, half an hour each session. And we should be able to do that for a good, probably couple of months, I would say. Because also we are hoping to keep ourselves afloat throughout this unknown period of God knows what's going to happen. We have a couple of offers as well. So we're running some advanced racing seminars. So we're going to go into a lot more detail on this. We've got about 26 sessions. They're 12 hours each. And I'll put a link to this on the blog, which I'm going to put up with this video. So this session, this kind of block of approximately 26 sessions of 12 hours worth of material, it's 95 quid or 75 quid if you're a repeat offender. By repeat offender, I mean those who sailed with us a lot, particularly those who were signed up to do the Sunsail Regatta, which got cancelled because of the coronavirus, and those who did the Frostbite series, which got cancelled because of all the storms we had. Well, not, it didn't get cancelled, but half of it did. So yeah, so that's going to be, again, once or twice a week, just in probably half an hour little snippets again as well. starting in a week or two's time. And then we're also looking to run online Day Skipper and Yachtmaster theory courses online on Zoom. We will likely be able to convert these into RYA quite easily, but at the moment we're just looking to be covering all the same material as you would in your RYA certificates, and then we'll adapt it as we go. We've got options here to just do a kind of revision part of it if you've maybe done the certificate already and you just want to cover the key topics of both of the syllabi. But if you want to do the whole thing, that's not a problem as well, and it'll be a longer course, probably double length, over about 40 to 45 hours of kind of sessions plus homework. And what we'll do is we'll send you a pack as well in the mail, so you can sort of work at home through it, and we'll do a classroom, so to speak, an online classroom of probably up to 10-12 students, and myself or someone else to be running the sessions, and then we'll kind of mark your homework virtually and things like that. But more about that at the end. But yeah, so for right now, the 5 essentials. 5 essentials are basically, how do we go faster? Why is that boat going faster than me? These are all things which the 5 essentials are looking for. If you're racing and you see another boat of the similar kind of spec to yours, or even better, one design, and you see that they seem to be going faster than you, you can think, right, what is it they're doing better than me? By going through the 5 essentials, it's just a really quick procedure of just saying, right, are they, just to work out what it is that you could potentially be doing better. So yeah, why is this boat sailing past me and going much faster? Let's have a look. So the first one, most important, course made good. There's no point in sailing a boat really fast if you're going in the wrong bloody direction. So steering that's why on a yacht, being the helm, although is not the most complicated job on the boat, is regularly one of the most important, because if you suddenly start steering off the wrong way, then no matter how well everyone else in the crew is doing, it doesn't really make a difference. You have the ability to stitch them all up. So yeah, so for example, and here's just an example of an Olympic dinghy racing course. Also, not dissimilar to like the America's Cup racing things these days. With got a little sausage windward leeward mark here. So you've got the start line up to the windward mark, down to the leeward gate, up to the windward mark. You can probably have a couple of laps of that, and then final lap down to mark number 2, 3, and finish. Okay. Sail trim. Sail trim is obviously key. It's your accelerator. If you're only resting your foot gently on the accelerator rather than foot flat to the floor the whole time, then no wonder people are going to be going faster than you. So we want to make sure we get our sails set correctly. We can talk about this for absolute hours. We're going to cover this in much more detail into the finer tuning of sail setting correctly for all the different types of conditions, because obviously the wind strength, the sea state, whether the wind's gusty or constant, whether you have a shifting wind or wind shear as we call it, depending on the pressure, it can make a difference to how much the wind direction is veering or backing as you get further away from the water's surface, so how much twist you want to put in your sail and things like that. Okay, so here we have a typical sail telltale here on the jib, on the head sail of the boat, and I'll leave you 2 seconds to work out what's wrong there. Option 1, what's wrong, is probably that there's simply not enough wind. Option 2 is the sail is too tight. If the sail's too tight in like that, you can see the windward telltale, the one that's closest to us and the boldest, is just dropping straight down because any wind that's getting in that sail is simply hitting it and bouncing off because the sail's too tight. What you need to do is ease the sail out. You can see the telltale around the back is lifting slightly. That's what tells me that there's not enough wind, because I feel like if it was windy, that would be lifting up to almost 90 degrees. But the wind strength isn't enough to lift up that piece of light woolen material, so probably just too light wind. So what you do want is your telltales basically looking like this, both streaming back beautifully. You have a slight kind of scissory look in it. The windward one is normally and should be slightly higher. It kind of depends on your wind angle, but sails telltales are generally set to be work and function best when you're sailing upwind rather than sailing off the wind, reaching, especially downwind. When we're sailing downwind, we normally sail with spinnakers, so the jib is redundant and is dropped or furled away. And so we don't worry about the telltales on the jib downwind. But a lot of the time when we're cruising, we don't have a spinnaker on board, so we're trying to force this jib to do the best job it can do for a job that it wasn't really designed to do. Not if you're sailing to a sort of certain performance. Apologies if you're hearing screaming in the background, but we have really annoying neighbours. Yeah, so questions on that. We had a couple of questions on that in the session, and yeah, so basically, how to know what to do with your sail. So if your windward telltale is lifting up, so the windward telltale being the sail that's on the inside edge of the curve, then you need to bring the sail in tighter. So the inside telltale is lifting, bring the sail in tighter. If the leeward telltale is lifting, you let the sail out looser. And again, it's just really small, gentle movements. You don't want to do anything in a rush because it shakes the power out of the sail and slows you down. Okay, so there's sail trim, our second of the 5 essentials. Balance is the tipping of the boat from port to starboard, left to right, the windward, leeward, heel. Okay, so we do not really want to sail the boat on it, tipping over. It's just not as quick for many reasons. The hull of the boat is designed to be fastest when it's flat. Some of them have slight design tweaks like chines and things like that to mean that they can be a little bit quicker with a bit of heel on and things like that. But ideally you want to sail with your boat flat, except when we're sailing upwind, the boat is generally never flat unless you've got no wind or very little wind, because the power of the wind is blowing you over. And actually the sails these days are generally cut to actually be set perfectly at a slight angle of heel for those upwind conditions. So yeah, but generally you want to sail with your boat flat. Upwind, that's unrealistic. And so if you're sailing upwind on a yacht, on a dinghy, you always sail a dinghy up flat at all times, ideally, apart from perhaps in very, very, very light conditions. But it's the same with a yacht. In light airs, upwind, you generally put all your crew on the leeward side to help the boat heel over a little bit. And what that does is gravity helps the sails sag and set into their kind of natural shape, which makes them a more effective airfoil and helps you sail faster. So that's the reason for why you'd heel over the boat deliberately going upwind. But certainly, like when it's windy, you can't have the boat flat going upwind. It's impossible unless you've got a canting keel and a lot of people who weigh a lot on board sitting on the rail, but you're not going to overpower the power of a sail on 95% of boats. And I think that's about that to say on that. When it's windy, especially downwind, if you're sailing with a boat not flat, if you're sailing downwind in particular, the rudder has loads of weather helm in it. These days, modern boats, a lot of them have twin rudders because those are the boats to look out for. They're the ones that are regularly designed to have a small amount of heel on, because the angle of those rudders is designed so that the rudder is perpendicular to the water, the sea, as it's slightly heeled. But any boat with a single rudder, as soon as you've got heel in it and you're going fast, it's going to introduce weather helm, make life harder, make you go slower, and potentially broach you out. So, which is why keep the boat flat, and you'll be in much more control. Speaking of broaching, this is obviously what's happened here. You can see this boat's got a single rudder. Their spinnaker's overpowered, the keel's out of the water, the rudder's out of the water, they've got no control. The more you heel over, the closer to this position is where your rudder's coming, and therefore the closer to having zero control you're having. And then here's an extreme of not sailing particularly quickly because they're just showboating. Alex Thompson classic here. Okay, the fourth one is boat trim. So we talked about balance is left to right, trim is front to back, bow to stern. There's lots of factors here. Again, we'll go into more detail on this on our other series, but yeah, we've got sea state, strength of the wind. Are you going upwind? Are you going downwind? What's your boat's hull shape like? All these things are what are going to help us. So we had a slight issue with the. So we can see here. we've got SCA, the Volvo 70 from a couple of years back. Their trim is, they're going downwind. Yeah, they've got their, looks like an asymmetric A3 or their fractional masthead sail up there, and as well as a stay sail. So they've got their they're downwind, and you can see all the crew are as far back as possible, and they're trying to lift that bow out of the water so that they can not bury itself into waves. And it's planing as well, so you can see that, you know, the front half of the boat isn't even in the water, which is mostly ridiculous and a lot of fun, but not what we're used to doing mostly on our sort of whatever 30 to 50 foot boats. Although a lot of the new modern, you know, lightweighters are designed to do this as well. Because if they bury their nose in, then it's going to look a bit more like the picture on the right on the Brunel Volvo 65, which is absolutely probably ploughing through the Southern Ocean, and therefore you don't really have much say in the matter. But because of that, because their bow got too far down, they've gone and buried their nose in. So basically, on the whole, the best boat is best sailed flat. You don't want it doing a nosedive. You don't want it doing a wheelie. You do want it doing a wheelie if you are planing and you want to have as much weight back as possible, because you're getting more boat out of the water and you're making the boat go faster. If you are sailing a normal boat, by that I mean a displacement hold, non-planing, in light winds what you can do is maybe get the weight further forwards to get the nose down and get the big fat bum out of the water, to have a slightly narrower waterline profiles for a bit more speed. In heavy winds and heavy seas, you want to certainly, in big waves, you don't want to have lots of weight on the bow, because you don't want that bow again burying down into the waves, so you want to move people back. And when the wind goes from the light airs where you've got people maybe slightly further forward, especially going downwind, you then start to bring people back more as the wind picks up on all points of sail. But then we're basically, if you're in flat water, it's windy, etc., you just want to have people in the middle, going upwind, and then again when it's windy going downwind, you always want to bring people back, because you're putting weight on top of the rudder, which means the you're not going to do this here in the bottom left photo. Okay, and then finally, oh yeah, so here's an example, sorry, quick little this is what happens. I mean, this is an extreme foiling America's Cup designed 70 foot, boom, that is a pitch pole, which yachts don't do most of the time, but these new foiling boats have an extra dimension in which they can mess things up. So yeah, you don't want to be doing that. Looks fun though, as long as you're wearing a helmet. So yeah, the final of the 5 essentials is not really an essential that we worry about on 90% of yachts, because we don't have an adjustable centerboard, daggerboard, canting keel, etc. These are generally for the slightly more extreme racing boats. But you can see here, the canting keel can swing from port to starboard up to about 40 degrees, I think. And if you've got that keel swung all the way out to the side, then you suddenly don't have a foil in the water, which is stopping the boat from drifting sideways. So if you're sailing upwind on these boats, particularly, you're going to swing. You want to, if you have all, the Volvos sail in 30 knots with a full mainsail or one reef in perhaps, and it's a massive sail. So if you're going to be doing that, you want to make sure you've got that keel canted all the way over. I'm not sure on the exact weight of the boat. I know the Volvo 70s, the hull itself used to weigh 7 tons, and then the bulb at the end of the keel would also weigh about 7 tons. So in that bulb, you've got almost the same weight again of the rest of the boat combined. So if you can bring all of that righting moment up to the side, it's going to have a massive levering effect, bringing you back upright. Now that's going back into the balance side of things there, but in terms of our centerboard, if you're going upwind in that situation with a canting keel swung all the way up to the side, you're going to have your daggerboard all the way down, trying to stop you from slipping sideways and giving you some lift. And when I say lift, I mean it's just the fact that the opposite reaction to the boat being pushed sideways through onto the daggerboard is just going to push you forwards instead. Not necessarily generating lift, but anyway, I'm overcomplicating that. Moving on. If you're going downwind in this situation, You may, if it's really windy, blowing dogs off chains, you may still keep the keel up to the side, but you will then be able to bring the dagger board up because you're no longer, when you're turning downwind, you're not being pushed sideways and you're not drifting. So you just want to have as much, you don't need as much grip in the water, so you may have very little, just maybe like a foot or so of dagger board in the water. Okay, so yeah, that's everything. I hope that's been useful for you. I think I've answered all the questions that were asked in the session. Hopefully this recording has actually worked and I haven't just been talking to myself for 15 minutes. The next session on Thursday at 12:30 is going to be on a simplified version of the racing rules, just to run through them all in 20 minutes, things to watch out for in a race course, etc. After that, we're going to look at race preparation, prior to a race, things to get ready, etc. And there's also a link included in this blog, which I'm going to put below, to a spreadsheet, which is a public spreadsheet, which we're kind of updating live as we jiggle things around, and that's got all the topics on it, which are coming up in this series and the other series as well. It will also have, so again, this series is a sort of racing intro / recap, and it's kind of based from everyone from never really raced before up until have done a bit of racing but could do with a bit of a refresher, and there's quite a bit of it that maybe I didn't understand fully, and it's kind of based at that. If you're looking at the, I get my racing and I just want to improve, and maybe I'm stuck in one role or one or two roles on the boat and I want to learn more about what the other roles on the boat might be, how I could be better at those, then that's what our next package is going to be on, starting in a week or two's time for 95 quid. That's going to be, again, about 12 hours worth of content. Everything that's included on that is going to be on this spreadsheet, and that might be a bit more what you're interested in if you fancy it. Obviously, it's your choice. And then for the skippers, for the day skippers who are feeling a bit rusty, our session that we'll have, we'll probably do our first one of those next week, and then what we might do is do one of each week on the Tuesday and the Thursday, so they kind of both go in pace together. That should be that. And then also, again, if you want to do, rather than, we've got an online course you can sign up and do. There's loads of those going around. I know the Corinthians has got a really good deal with Urban Truant, doing their online course. You can do also the same with us if you want. Ours is fractionally more expensive. But if you don't fancy doing an online only course and you want to do it in a slightly more classroom based environment, I am going to be running those from my computer. I will be setting up a bit of a studio type thing so I can have my charts. I've got my pack of, oh no, I've just dropped them everywhere. Got my pack of small magnetic boats with sails on, etc., which is going to be very useful, and I dare say I'm going to be using quite a lot. And then I'll have charts so I can just show you my chart work. And then there's also a lot of really good online software for free, which I'll get you to all log into and set up an account with, and it will help you develop those skills on how to use that as well, so that you become better at not just the chart work and the knowing all the theory, but also just the electronic navigation, which is what we're moving more and more towards all the time these days. So if you're interested in any of those, get in touch. The online courses are going to be in the realm of about £300, and if you just want to do a kind of a shortened recap version of them because you've already got the certificate, for example, then there'll be a reduced amount for that. Otherwise, I hope that's been useful, and thanks very much. Hopefully this hasn't all been for nothing. See you on Thursday. Cheers. Bye.